Welcome back to Random Ramblings. Woohoo! This is the fourth one. It's been a while since I could hold my head up. That's a Stained reference, but it's been a while. So thanks for coming
Yeah.
back.
Yep. I'm glad that we're doing another one. Um,
Yeah, obviously not divulging too much on the podcast itself, but I was busy last week, so
yeah.
we are back.
Every
Black.
everything went all right.
Yeah, that well. I mean, like as well as it can, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, Kung Pao. You watched that a couple weeks ago or so. The
Yeah.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for those that aren't in the know or they forgot or whatever, tweeting themes here used to be tweeting the movie Kung Pao. I finished the movie, but that was my claim to fame in the beginning. And yeah, so I wanted to open up with that movie
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's so weird. Like, there's so much that's weird about. Because I went through and I watched like the commentary and the behind the scenes stuff and whatever. Right?
Ooh.
And
Uh,
you know, is that what were you gonna say?
oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say because there's so much that's so the basic idea, I guess, for people that haven't watched the movie, it's one of those meme movies, I guess, a little bit more, or a little bit less known than obviously something like a B movie. But the idea is that it's an old like 70s or 80s kung fu flick, and Steve Odenkirk bought the rights to that movie, and he like redubbed like all the people in it to the point where he actually like green screened himself as the lead. Sometimes just the head, sometimes like part of the body too. And he would even like voice line like nonsense gibberish lines in English so that like he could dub them later so that the mouse sync was still off. Like, with like the rest of the movie, since the rest of the movie, like the rest of the cast is like uh Japanese, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so much weird stuff with it. Like the cow fight was all CGI too. That was
Yeah.
do it. And actually, the order of the movie is different as well. Like some of the scenes are kind of moved around a bit. The fake sequel bait at the end just takes scenes that they didn't use. Like there's a whole torture scene
Oh, okay.
that they didn't even use. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It was funny because it actually had a pretty decent plot, I guess you would say. Like
yeah,
it had a structure of a plot, so
yeah. It was coherent. I'd say like there was obviously some parts are like it's there for a gag, but it's like that's all it needs to be.
yeah.
You know
Um,
the tongue, the whole thing with the tongue for some reason. It's like why not? I guess.
yeah. My first exposure to it outside of you doing the account, the Twitter account, was Corridor Crew. They review CGI scenes in movies, and they
Uh,
were specifically reviewing the cow scene.
oh, nice.
And so they were comparing, or they were analyzing how they did the Matrix reference in the cow scene.
Yeah, you could kind of tell. You can kind of date the movie by that because everyone was doing a Matrix parody,
Yeah,
like with the little thing at that time. But it's one of those. That felt like it worked pretty well. Uh, yeah, but that movie, you know what? It was so weird. I came across that from. I feel like it was either like a I hate everything or a your movie sucks type
hmm
of like review, and it was just one of those where it was like I think I think it was. I think it was I hate everything. I think his like search for the worst. If I'm not mistaken.
Wait, so it was a critical review, like a negative review of the movie?
Well, it was well, in the sense of like these are bad movies, like so bad's good type movies.
Oh, okay.
Similar to like The Room has been reviewed that way too. I think it gets put along those type of like the Birdemic, like stuff like that, right? The kind of like
I feel like this doesn't fall in that category though because he intentionally made it that way, right?
yeah, I would agree. There's a difference between like intentionally making something funny versus like trying to actually be serious, and then like it ends up humorous just because of how like bad it is.
Hmm. From what I understand, the Birdemic one was serious. At least that was the intent of the director. I,
Yeah, I know it. That one was serious. I know The Room was as well.
yeah,
I just mean in the sense of more like those get put together in terms of like kind of memey stuff.
yeah.
But
I'm,
actually, I should watch one of those one of these times.
yeah, I've never
Actually,
watched The Room. It's on my list to watch though.
I've seen a couple scenes out of context of The Room. I did not hit her.
Yep.
So good. Um, but anyway, Kung Pao. What did you think about the title character, the chosen one?
uh, no resemblance to our chosen one, Blue's Clues,
Yeah, he's the
but
Messiah.
yep.
It's a little different.
But yeah, I don't know. I really liked the character, and I liked the actor as well. He
Yeah,
just seemed to have a kind of a good vibe.
right.
Um, what other movies is he in?
Okay, so from what I know, he does this weird. He did the motion stuff with like called thumbs,
Okay.
something along the line. So, and the main thing he's known for is the Barnyard movies, like the Nickelodeon
Oh, okay.
movie with the cow, Otis and the rest of them. And that was a movie, and that was also a TV show as well.
I grew up
Uh,
with pretty much only Cartoon Network access.
yeah, right.
Because I grew up in Hungary, so we had some satellite TV.
If you're hungry, why didn't you just eat, stupid? That's
Never
dumb.
heard that.
Have you not? I feel like
No,
that'd be
no,
such
no,
an.
no. That was sarcasm.
Yeah, I was gonna say like that's like the dumbest joke ever. Someone must have said.
Yeah.
At least you didn't grow up in Thirsty. um,
That's the one I've
anyway,
never heard.
good because that one felt like it took a little bit more effort. Not much.
Yeah, after I watched Kung Pao, I ended up watching a few martial arts movies just because I kind of got interested in or re-interested in the genre.
All
Um,
right, right.
I mean, like not classics, just some recent movies that I saw that were reviewed well. One of them being The Foreigner with
All
Jackie
right.
Chan. Um, uh, Basically, there's an IRA organization that uh, ended up killing his daughter in a bombing, and so he basically takes revenge and kills them all. Um, so it's like a video where he's not kind of an archetypal good guy. Uh, he's kind of an anti-hero in that movie. It was really interesting, and it's recent, so he's like, I don't know how old he is, close to 70 probably, and
Yeah.
he's still doing stunts, but um, the the but the context of the stunts is that he's kind of aging, and so you can tell that it has a much bigger impact on his body, but he can still pull off the stunts, and it looks really cool, even as an old man.
That's pretty cool. I can't. To be honest, I can't think of too many films I've seen like from him. I know like the one thing I grew up on was Jackie Chan Adventures, but
Ah,
that's animated, of course. But yeah, it does blow my mind when people like that do their own stunts. As long as they stay
um,
safe.
the
Um,
ones I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of his old ones. The ones I've seen are the Tuxedo. That's one of my favorites.
yeah.
And then what was the movies he had with Owen Wilson? Have you seen those?
Um, wasn't there like a Rush Hour or something?
Yeah, Rush
That
Hour. No, that's not the one I'm talking about, but also Rush Hour. Yeah. The one was with Owen Wilson are westerns. Uh,
oh yeah, I don't think I don't know the name off the top of my head.
yeah, those are really good. But I
There.
mean, they're very not serious.
Well, I
um,
mean,
And then I also watched what was the name of the movie? When the Night Comes, I think is the name of it. It was made by the same crew that made The Raid, and so it's an
Gotta
Indonesian
watch it.
movie. Um, and the the fight scenes are really brutal. It was really really good, really fun to watch.
All right. So,
But
as someone who hasn't seen probably any of those films, just because I'm not one that watches films too much,
yeah,
if you were to choose one specifically to watch, like or to recommend rather for me to watch, what would you?
uh, ooh, I don't know. I'm
Maybe
not really.
we'll say one serious one and one like funny one or whatever, right?
Yeah,
And so
I'm not really big into martial arts movies as a whole. I
yeah,
think my main movie genre is horror. That's my favorite genre, and
uh,
space sci-fi. Um, but martial arts movies, I think so. The Raid and The Raid 2, Raid Redemption, those are both really good movies. They're kind of uh, this this group of law enforcement lays siege on a large apartment complex, and there's a group inside that's defending it, and it's basically their conflict, and that's just a really well choreographed movie overall, and
yeah,
the scenes look really visceral. So I'd recommend that as a serious one. Um,
no,
the Tuxedo
yeah.
is probably a good recommendation for a Jackie Chan movie. Um,
I do like me good like choreographed fights, like because some of those, especially because I've so for school, right? Like I did theater for a couple years.
yeah.
So I've taken a couple of like stage combat type classes. So like that in the sense of like I know like I have like a vague idea of like how much effort that would take to pull something off like that.
Hmm.
Like how many moving parts that would have to be, and like it's like one like I don't know. It's just so I usually I have mad respect for
Have
scenes
have you
that because it's not as easy like at all.
Have you seen the YouTube channel Corridor Crew, the one that I mentioned before?
No, I never even heard of them.
I highly recommend that
Yeah.
channel. They're basically a CGI studio that makes kind of viral videos, but when they're not making those kinds of videos, they review CGI in movies, and they sometimes bring on animators from those movies, and they also bring stuntmen to review stunt scenes from movies. And so I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting content, especially since you were talking about choreography of fights. They do
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
That's not, actually, to be fair, that does sound like something to be right up my alley. I'm usually one that likes to, if it's like a property that I like, I usually like to dig into it. Like you said, the commentary, the behind the scenes, all that. I'm usually the one that watches all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, but they all have like industry experience, it seems, or at least some of them do. So they know all the lingo. So it really feels like you're watching commentary by people that make movies, and it's really fun.
That reminds me a bit of you ever seen that Larry Loudon dude, the jewel thief?
Mm, no.
Okay, so he's like America's biggest jewel thief. Like he was a big robber back in the day.
Okay.
He got caught, and now he does videos on YouTube about all a bunch of stuff, right, in his life. But then sometimes he'll talk about like certain movies, right, and he'll review like how realistic it is in terms of like how this heist is
Ooh,
set up. He's done it on GTA heists as well. Like he'll do it for video game stuff as well, like Payday and
ooh,
GTA.
I'm gonna need you to send me that link after this.
Yeah, he has
Um,
like I think he has like a million subs at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right up my alley. I love watching experts react to movies, like Legal Eagle reacting to legal stuff.
yeah, yeah, that's another good one. Um, I've watched some of his stuff too.
Hmm.
I just sent it in the
And Dr. Mike reacts to some medical stuff. There's a topic. Maybe that's. Are you familiar with Dr. Mike?
um not particularly. I think I've heard of a doctor like I think I've seen a like Doctor React type thing before,
Uh-huh.
like when I've looked at these other videos, like in the recommended. I don't think I've ever clicked on any of them.
Well, there was a recent controversy because he's been a huge advocate for staying at home and properly quarantining and proper testing and stuff like that. uh, all year. And recently, um, he went with some of his friends on a boating trip, and there were a bunch of people without masks taking pictures together, and this was in Florida, back in
Oh,
like
like, where's Florida? Where else would it
October or something. Uh, so that's obviously not a good look, because he's a he's a practicing certified doctor that
be
is
certified?
a huge personality for on YouTube in the medical community. So he
Yeah, that would definitely be a big hit.
yeah, he released an apology on his second channel.
Oh, come on. And be taking the views on the big money maker, huh? That's
Yeah. Um
that's perfect.
I kind of lost a lot of respect for him, but I still like his content. It's yeah, it's hard. I'm still gonna
Well,
watch his content. I personally, I've forgiven him, but I know a lot of people won't. I don't know.
that kind of that could be an interesting discussion. I don't know if we've touched on it in the past a bit, but
Hmm.
separating art from artist. That could
Separating
be
what?
separating the art from the artist.
Ah,
Because I can think of a few like channels in the past where like so I've seen him like say or do some dumb stuff on Twitter, right? Where I'm just like, this is like,
not the
and for the
brand
most part, like
image.
I usually don't care, but
Hmm.
it's usually like if they get like super antagonistic with like there's like what I would consider to be valid criticism, and it's just like shoved off as like, oh, you're just a bunch of like, oh, you're just a bunch of right wing trolls or something, right? Or
Yeah,
it's usually like some weird like me you're going to some alt right whatever stuff, even though it's not like that at all.
yeah,
Um, that type of stuff usually makes me lose quite a bit of respect for people, or like if it's or like that where it's like non apologies type thing.
yeah. Um,
Oh, kind of like what was it? What was the one? It was like the CS:GO scam, for example, or like the Fine Girls
yeah,
React, like stuff like that, right? Like where it's just like, come on, man.
yeah,
Like at that point, like just don't make apology at all because this is worse. um, but anyway, the point of that was that even with some of those people, um, where like I've unsubscribed from people in the past because of that type of thing.
mhm,
But then if I found their content to be good enough, I've come back and watched. Like I haven't resubscribed to them, but I've come back and watched a couple of their videos that I was really interested in. Right, it's kind of more so like I guess it's more of a thing of like now like I'm not I don't really try the newer content because it's like
mhm.
you kind of burn that bridge with me in a sense. But now like the content I already like in the format, it's like you make quality stuff, right?
Yeah,
Because much I might not like what you're doing as a person. Like, it's a kind of a similar thing with um I guess people that make movies, music, video games, whatever, right? As
mhm,
much as like maybe a video game studio does like a bunch of crunch, um, I still like a game that they've made. I might not I'll probably wait until it becomes cheaper, right? In the sense of like I try not to reward like my pre-orders and stuff like that.
yeah. EA is
But
actually kind of turning around in that regard. Their Star Wars games have been pretty great lately.
my dad's played that I think what Rogue One or whatever it is. Is that what it is?
Star Wars Squadrons,
No, there's one
or
before
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. That's what it was.
Yeah,
Right? Rogue is the name of the
that
movie.
one was
I'm
great.
not very. I don't watch any movies, so whatever. But I know my dad's into them.
Yeah,
He liked that one quite a bit though. Fallen Order.
yeah, that was fun. But yeah, EA has had a horrible reputation for the past, 10-ish years, probably. I think it got really bad after they
The loot box.
bought BioWare, and then Mass Effect 3 came out, and then it
Mm.
all just went downhill from there.
Well, they've been doing pretty bad ever since people started like I don't know. Like it was kind of a slow crawl, but there was a lot of writing on the wall because like if you look at their sports games, for example, right? Like you run into the problem of like the sports games like looking like they're pretty much the same game every year.
Hmm.
Which I mean, a lot of people made that joke about like Call of Duty, but at least like there'd be different settings or whatever, right? It just literally with these, it would just be like different roster,
Yeah,
full dealer game. But so there was that, and then of course there was the whole loot box thing with them. in like 2015, was it 16, something like that? Whatever the Battlefront 2 stuff.
I kind of had a low opinion of Ubisoft until today when I was talking with a coworker, and he said that from what he hears, the work-life balance is actually pretty good at Ubisoft. Because I've been
Yeah.
like progressively more upset with studios that impose big crunch time before the release of a game.
Right, right. Um, yeah, I don't know if I don't think I've ever heard any sort of crunch thing about them. I've heard of some sexual assault scandals,
Oh,
but
okay. Yeah, my only
it's
big complaint about Ubisoft is the Assassin's Creed games have gotten repetitive, at least for me.
um. Well, yeah, because a lot of their games seem to follow the same formula, right? It's like
Hmm.
here's a big world, and then scattered bunch of towers, and then a bunch of weird side objectives
Yeah,
that are like there aren't really a lot of thought put into them. It just kind of seems almost like procedurally generated type thing.
yeah. The fortresses in
Yeah,
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they were like it was basically all the same thing. There's some you
yeah.
know key people to kill, some things to burn. Um, yeah.
I don't. That seems like a series I actually would like quite a bit in the sense of like I like stealth quite a bit. Like
Hmm.
usually when there's a stealth option in a game, I'll play it.
Um,
And
I'm hearing
assassin game,
good. Yeah, I'm hearing good things about Valhalla. If you wanted to get in with a modern title, but Assassin's Creed 1, 2, and Revelations and Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed 4, they're all great. I liked
yeah,
3. I liked Assassin's Creed 3, but I mean, a lot of people didn't.
right. I think if I were to do one, I'd probably do like a later or like a earlier entries in the series because I don't know. I've done that type of thing before where I played like the newer versions of the games
Hmm.
series, and then like if I try to go back, like it just kills it for me because it's so primitive. Like one for the graphics, two for the controls usually, and like the type of things. Like I
Yeah.
remember Hitman was like that with me. I played I played Absolution,
Hmm.
which actually a lot of people hate in the series, but I played that like initially, and I really liked it. And then I started playing some of the newer ones, and I was like, okay, whatever, right? I'll go back and play some of the old ones, right?
Hmm.
Because everyone loves these, and like I just couldn't stand them.
Yeah. I've played a few missions of a couple of the Hitman games. I really like the concept. I think I just kind of moved on to something else at the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure I would enjoy playing those seriously.
Well, if you ever want to get into them, Hitman 2. Okay, so Hitman 2 has all the maps from Hitman 1 if you get the DLC with it.
Hmm.
Or well, for me, because I owned the first game, if you own it, like they just give it to you for free. Obviously, if you don't own the other ones, then whatever. But same thing with 2 as well, or same thing with 3. So it's gonna have all the maps from 2 and 1 in it from the 2016, 2018 games. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not one of those things where like they rename like it's a reboot and they just name it the same thing. Hitman, Hitman 2, Hitman. It's like there's already Hitman 2.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
But so Hitman 3 is supposed to have all the maps. So if at any point you're ever like, I want to test this out, see what it's like, and you have the option to play them all in one convenient game.
Hmm.
But there's a point to that.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on this rabbit hole. I think we were.
Uh, oh yeah, there was supposed to be a discussion about art from artist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Ellen.
what's your thought?
Ellen is probably a classic example of that, right?
Uh,
She has like
yeah,
a
okay.
sunny disposition on the show.
Yeah, that's a good point. Of like, so here's the problem you kind of run into with some of those. Um, how like when the people put their own personality into things, it's kind of
Hmm.
difficult to like say like a Chris Brown or something, right? But then with something like with Ellen, where it's not the same person, it's a lot easier to separate. And then how much you make it personal yourself, like you have the problem with Ellen in the sense of like it's her name, right? Like it's not like it's not some fake character or something, right? Like it's not like a stage name, like your name's Ellen.
Yeah.
So you kind of run into like some pluses and minuses, I guess, about that.
Yeah. My real
But
name is actually Esp Memes.
yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah. My real name is themes, obviously.
What are some other examples of um what were you wanting to discuss about the topic, like whether or not it's uh disingenuous or
Oh,
to
what?
kind of have a different personality from your
What?
character?
Well, because there's a bunch of different facets, and I was kind of jumping around with it. It's more so just talking about this subject in general. But like, there are cases where I do feel like it is harder to separate with others.
I wonder if Drama Alert is I wonder if Keemstar is different in person than his online persona. If he's actually, a
Um,
decent person.
See, here's the thing, right? I've heard like where he's been really cool with other people, but it's like, yeah, probably because he's friends with them. Like, and yeah, he's probably a really good friend if you're friends with him. But like, when you have a dude sitting there calling you like calling some random dude a pedophile, like what is that old guy like he accused of being a pedo?
Yep, the RuneScape guy.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it's one of those things where it's like, or like the Total Biscuit, where he's like, can't wait to report on your death or whatever. And it's like, it's not just like, I mean, those are I choose those examples because they're the big ones that everyone knows. But
Yeah.
even if you go look at his like Twitter, like he's constantly just antagonistic to like fucking everyone around him.
Yeah, and he'll like retweet people that are arguing with him, so that his army can go, destroy them in the comments.
Yeah, so yeah, and with that type of behavior, it's like it's hard for me to be like it's difficult to separate with him. But then again, to be fair, with his content, like I guess it's easier for me to just ignore his content because I don't really like his content too much to begin with.
Mm.
I mean, I'm definitely like, I'm not above being interested in petty drama, but at the same time, like, there's only so much I can sit here and watch some toxic, whatever go on about it.
Yeah. Uh,
Like, dude, 40 or something, like
yeah.
35.
I used to watch him because I felt like I needed to know the news in the YouTube community.
Yeah.
That was the reason I was watching, but I kind of dropped off at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
It,
So I dropped off around, was it? I probably watched around 2016, 2017, 2018. Probably
mhm.
about when I would have dropped out. What about you?
Mm, um, Probably 2018, 2019 is when I watched some.
Yeah. Because it's weird. I assume you probably do as well. Do you go through phases on YouTube? Like I'm doing like I'm just watching a bunch of this content. Like this is
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
it's kind of weird though, isn't it? Like it's almost like you can look at YouTube like at different points and be like, this was the whatever phase, right? Like this was the emo phase, Dad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, like it's weird.
Um, hmm.
I mean, granted, some of it's because of the changes in the algorithm, right? So like for example, like animation obviously was a lot more prevalent back in the day.
Yeah.
So that was more like, like, oh wow, I'm sitting here watching a bunch of, Newsground or Newgrounds, Newgrounds re-uploads, right? In the sense of like, oh, here's Super. What was it? What was the show? It was like Super Mario Brothers, Sonic, and Dragon Ball Z.
Mm.
Like Super Mario Brothers Z or something. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
It vaguely sounds familiar.
Yeah, so it was just like they did a bunch of like a Dragon Ball Z plot with the seven Chaos Emeralds,
Yeah.
and so Mario and Sonic was crazy.
Um,
And the
y-
dude, and like a lot of content creators, the dude like stopped after a while.
yeah, yeah.
Like it ended up unfinished. But
Um, uh,
yeah, that era was crazy.
yeah, yeah. And I think like as the YouTube community evolves, I think and small changes in the algorithm, I think uh people like discover how to get good engagement on content, and there are people that take it to an extreme where they've got it down to a science, like Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
um um yeah, and it's just a matter of like, this is how to make engaging content, and this formula works, and it creates a lot of really great channels, and it creates a lot of really terrible channels too.
Right, right. Well, what would a system be without someone trying to exploit it?
Hmm.
Like the
Um,
you know,
but
there's
yeah,
always reply girls
yeah, yeah,
type of people,
yeah.
clickbaiters.
Um, yeah. Oh man. Um, yeah, and then I think for me, my phases tend to be I'm really interested in a topic like
Yeah,
finance, cryptocurrency, space science. Um, those are the recent ones. And then I'll just watch a ton of videos on it, exhaust the subject, and then switch to something else. It's just I've really run out of good quality content to watch on the subject, and then
yeah, almost. It's almost kind of sad in a way, with that type of thing, because like you'll just like, because I did the same thing, where you just use up a subject for all it's worth and then just move on.
I um yeah I suppose it's sad. I think I think I think maybe the sad part for me is whenever I discover a really great channel, and then I binge watch all of their content, and
And
then I
then it's
basically catch up, and
yeah,
then the algorithm stops recommending it because I'm not in this loop, this self reinforcing loop of like clicking on their videos because I basically ran out of videos, and so I don't end up seeing them for a while. Like at one point, I was really interested in Try Guys, so I watched a ton of Try Guys. Now and then I watched a ton of I haven't even seen Good Mythical Morning video recommended to me in months. I should go watch some Good Mythical Morning.
yeah. So when you use YouTube, then you go to the homepage and you see what's recommended for you.
Yeah, so nowadays my system is um, I trust the recommendations pretty highly because I think they're a really good representation of what I'm interested in. And
Yeah.
so I end up like especially the first page that it shows me. The first page seems to be very close to what my interests are. So 9 times out of the 10, I'm gonna be watching the videos that are there. And so I get major FOMO about missing out on a video that I think might be interesting. So I end up adding them to playlists that I watch later. And so
Um,
I
See
get a
that
bunch of recommendations, go through them, and then they end up on my playlist. And then at some point I'll get to them.
that's smart because I've there's been times where like I've left a tab open for a day
Yeah.
and I have whatever video highlighted.
Yeah.
I should be using that watch more. Actually, thing
Uh,
now that I think
so
use it is accidentally. Like
so
I'll
if
accidentally hit the wrong button.
if you look at my main YouTube account where I watch all my content,
Yeah.
and you look at the private playlists, I have a bunch of private playlists with gibberish names. Um, because the easiest way that I found to do it, I usually pull up videos on my phone and then cast it to my TV, to my Chromecast. And so the easiest thing I found is to add a bunch of stuff to my queue while I'm watching on my Chromecast, and then the videos that I don't get to, I add to a playlist. And you can't add to an existing playlist, so I just create a new playlist and then type in some gibberish name, um,
Uh,
and then save it. So that's my workflow. I imagine there's a bunch of other workflows that people have developed over the years.
so for mine, I usually just actually my homepage on my web browser is the subscription page for YouTube. I haven't really trusted the recommended too much
Mm,
in the sense because like I subscribe to probably about like I don't know 150 200 people or so.
yeah.
So usually what happens is I'll wake up and then there's probably like about 10 to 15 videos for me to watch.
Hmm.
Like even today, like I could sit here and be like review Tech USA, Lost in the Pond, obviously Critical, Charlie, whatever, right?
Yeah.
A couple of law channels, a couple podcasts, and a lot of video game stuff, and it's just like that usually keeps me busy. I guess I guess that's usually what it is that it keeps me busy to where I don't really need to go to recommend too much. Although I do find myself if like I've run out of content to watch, I will go to the homepage and I'll take a gander through.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
find it
take a recommended first approach nowadays, which means I end up missing a lot of, people I subscribe to. Like, I haven't watched a PewDiePie video in a while, even though I really like him and enjoy his content.
I think I unsubscribed from him a while back.
Wow. Oh, how
Yeah,
dare you? No.
well, yeah, because I can't think of the last time I've actually watched a PewDiePie video. I can't
So
think of a PewDiePie video I've watched in full.
the,
Like
the
in.
yeah, the ones I've enjoyed recently from PewDiePie are when he reviews Jubilee videos. So I don't know if you've seen the Jubilee channel. Um,
um,
they come up with these scenarios like they have like five five Christians and an atheist that all kind of talk amongst themselves and try to figure out which one's the atheist.
oh, okay. So I haven't seen the content by itself. I've seen critical
Yeah, Critical's
like
done a few of
review
those.
content a couple times.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That channel's pretty fun. Um, I think the concepts themselves are pretty shallow sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
entertaining to watch.
Click. It's supposed to get you to click through, right? So that's
Yeah.
all it needs to do. I guess as long as you're entertained.
Um. Yeah. So.
So women, right? What about those? No, I had something. I feel like I completely lost it. Oh yeah, actually, one of the video I haven't watched it yet. I didn't realize your video was gonna be 4 hours long.
I
Ten
didn't.
thousand. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I googled how long. No, 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 not you. Okay, my Google Home is listening now.
Nice.
You can tell I'm listening or responding when the lights on top turn on.
I
Ronald,
could hear that. I could hear that in the background. You could tell I'm listening or responding. But
Okay, it
anyway,
stopped listening. Okay. So anyway, what was I saying?
you were talking about how you Googled how much.
Oh yeah, I looked it up. And they said it would take about 2 hours to count to 10,000. So I was like, okay. And then I quickly realized it's not going to take 2 hours. So yeah, it was almost 4 hours.
Or,
I think I should
so
have done some more planning there.
yeah, actually, yeah, because you did that for your 10K sub special. Right?
Yeah, counted to
Ooh,
10,000. I'm really glad my voice is like working today.
yeah, still good.
Um,
Um,
so
where did
Mr.
you
Beast did that same thing years ago.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was gonna say it says you're 10.5K, so you're already up another like 500 subscribers.
Yeah. Yeah. It was around 10,443 yesterday, which the number stands out to me because that's the port number people would use when they're developing something that's an HTTPS server. So going
I don't,
down
I don't,
the programming rabbit hole.
yeah, I would never call you a nerd to your face, but that's good. It's all good.
It's funny, my my car tag, I remember it because it has a port number in there. It's like a common port number on my car tag, and that's why I remember it.
Yeah, I remember goofy stuff for like little reasons like that too. Like I remember
Yeah.
one time, and this was years ago. Like I had a family member in the hospital, right?
Hmm.
And like nothing major or anything, right? But like they were, what was it? The room was 1812. So I remembered it by I kept saying the floor of 1812 instead of the war.
Oh,
It was like the dumbest thing, but like that's all I
nice.
remember, and I still remember it to this day, just because of
Yeah,
how dumb.
yeah.
Actually, even
Mnemonic devices are so powerful.
yeah, it helps. Yeah, with the because the idea is we can only I'm trying to remember the exact number, but I think it's like somewhere between like 7 to 8 or 7 to 9, like things that you can remember at once when it comes to like numbers and stuff.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to remember stuff when you make them, when you relate them to other. It's the same thing with like learning in general. When you relate it to other things, like they support each other in the sense, and it's kind of easier to remember
7 to 9
them.
in working memory, like while you're thinking about something. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
Oh, you mean like 7 to 9 digits?
yeah, yeah, and that's usually,
Yeah, that
if I'm
sounds
not
about
mistaken,
right.
that's usually why social security number and the phone numbers are like as long as they are. Why they're
Um,
not like something that's like considerably longer.
Huh. That's I've never thought about that. I tend to think of social security numbers as extremely insecure because um you know it's just a number that you can't change
Well,
that you have
no,
to
well,
provide over the phone sometimes.
I don't think that's why that particular one was chosen.
Yeah.
Because it was, it was done so long ago, and it's not like
Oh
our
yeah.
knowledge of psychology was not anywhere near what it is now.
So it's just a coincidence, basically.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think it just more so goes to show, like, it more so a reflection of, like, our brains.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining it properly. I feel like I'm trying to get words in my head and they're not coming.
So what you're saying is that um, it's secure in the aspect that it would be hard for someone to glance at a document and memorize it really fast unless they spent more than a few seconds, trying to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, you definitely want it. Yeah, long enough to where it'd be difficult to do that, because people, like, unless you do some sort of um like, what do you say, mnemonic device with it type of
Yeah.
thing. Like, unless you tried to pull like a thing like that, then you're probably not gonna remember like a long sequence of numbers. So obviously, there's some people in the world that could do that stuff.
Yeah. And
Um,
I
it's
feel
supposed to
like
be
that
out.
would be a trainable skill as well, probably.
Yeah, you can definitely increase your capacity with that. Like, if you practiced memorization, sure. I don't know about how much. Probably not by like some crazy amount, but
Yeah, there's a mod for that in Cyberpunk. No.
yeah. Oh, we could. Yeah, you could talk about that since you played it. Since that's been a very hot topic.
um
Uh, Whatever. Because my understanding of it is that the game seems like it's fun, but it's very bug ridden, and like absolutely should have had way more polish put onto it before it got put out.
yeah, and I'm hyper aware of the bugs while I'm playing.
Yeah.
It's not to the point where it's not an enjoyable game, but there's stuff like one of the easy ways to make money is uh, get a bunch of drinks from a soda. What's the word I'm looking for? The dispensing uh, vending machine. You get a bunch of drinks from a vending machine and break it down into components, and then use that to craft guns. Like, that's an easy way to make money. But there's a bug that surfaced recently where once your
Yeah.
save file reaches 8 MB, it corrupts the save file and it's irrecoverable.
That's like, that would be enough to make me just lose my.
And yeah, and yeah, that's a big momentum killer right there. And uh, every time you pick up an item, it increases the size of the save file. So I've been avoiding the game for the past few days until that's fixed because um, I don't want to worry about that. I'm at 2 MB right now, so it's not really close, but I've only recently started using the money making stuff with the vending machines.
Oh, right, right.
But in general, it's a really fun game. I enjoy combat, especially. It's fun to run around with a shotgun and hack people and then shoot them and kind of plan out how you're gonna take over an area. You can like look
Are,
at the
are
security
you
cameras.
are you as meme saying that violence is okay?
Yes, violence is okay.
Okay, well, I I respect your decision to say that.
Violence is okay. No,
Hey,
um, but yeah.
violence is okay, and if you don't agree, then fight me about it.
Well, today was my last day of work until next year, so I think I'll be on the Minecraft server a little bit more.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting back on that to continue my dirt base in the sky.
Yeah, and
Because
I'm happy to help
I'm
you
not
with
very
that.
good. I'm trying to. I almost thought about doing random ramblings in Minecraft, but I
Yeah,
was like, probably way too much like
I
busy
mean,
work.
I mean, that's not a terrible idea. Uh, it's on brand for the channel.
Yeah, well, I just walk around and aimlessly talk about stuff as we're trying to whatever. Maybe next week. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I'm open to the idea. Yeah, well, I mean, you saw my base. It's basically I built a giant tower in the sky. I'm building a giant hole in the ground. So not very creative on my side either.
Yeah, but you have like was yours the water?
The water
Like,
pillar that goes up to a tower.
yeah, it's better than what I did. Tried to with mine, like I'm trying to build it up where I jump because there's no dirt stairs as far as I'm aware.
hmm
So, but because I want everything to be dirt, like that's the whole appeal. Otherwise, like I'm not gonna even do it.
You know, I'm a gamer because I look back nostalgically on my early college and early work days where I could spend 5 hours, 6 hours a day on a video game and justify spending that time. But now I can't justify spending more than an hour a day on a video game.
Yeah, when I was in college, I felt that in the sense of like, God, I wish I could just like blow off this assignment and just like play Hitman for like 10 hours.
And I did that a lot in college.
um, I did that a lot in like elementary school, middle school, even high school to a degree. College is kind of where I wasn't doing it as much because I
I
did my college online. So like, what would happen is I would procrastinate it until like the last moment, and then I'd rush to get everything done. But whatever.
So I completed grad school while averaging around 7 to 8 hours a day in an MMO.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I just like did all my assignments and like
Mm.
work while listening to the lectures.
Although I guess too, so during that time, you weren't doing other things. Like you weren't doing like probably TV or YouTube too much or anything like that.
No, it's pretty much that MMO,
Okay, so
which
I
is
think that's
very unhealthy looking back.
yeah. If it's messing with your other stuff, it is.
It was.
Uh, okay, then yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's usually
unhealthy.
in the sense of, like if you're, for example, like if you didn't have a job,
Oh, I
but
had a job. I had a job, part-time hours.
no, but I'm just saying in general, like different things, right? In the sense of like because you want to get done your social agreements in the sense of like with your family, your friends, and your work, your school, your if you're religious, and I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying like listing things that like would
Yeah,
whatever, right? Like as long as you get all that fit, then you'd be fine. Like but some things like some people don't have some obviously like if you don't have a job or you're not religious or whatever, then you wouldn't have to spend any time on those.
yeah,
So even if you spent more time on say gaming instead, like that's not the amount of time isn't necessarily unhealthy. It's more so the allocation of how you're doing your time compared
yeah,
to other things.
yeah. It was basically classes, part-time work, and gaming, and that was my entire day.
Yeah.
So super unbalanced. Um, but yeah, all my choices added up to where I am today. So,
Yeah.
no regrets.
No
The
raggets.
tattoo.
That movie's
Yeah.
um I
Yeah.
think that might be more so why I noticed I like don't game as much as I used to. Because I was looking back, because every year from PlayStation I get email of like, here's your year in review or whatever, right?
hmm
And like, what was it? It was like 2018, I think it was, maybe 2017, or like I had 1,600 hours in the GTA 5.
Yeah.
That was just one game, and then like I had a bunch of others.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
I was like, oh, here's like 1,000 trophies you earned or whatever, right? Or stuff, and it's like it was a really productive year for gaming
For gaming.
for
Yeah.
whatever, right? But it was like it was one of those things where it's like I don't do it as much now, but then again, like I allocate my time a lot differently.
yeah.
Uh, in the sense of like at least my free time. I mean, in the sense of like, for example, YouTube takes up quite a bit more. Like I said, like before I would watch videos, of course, but like I wouldn't. I don't know, it's weird too because it's like okay, so and this will all come together. So you know how I said I have like a plugin that like speeds things up
hmm
for the videos. I think because I've done that, I think I've added more onto my play YouTube wise because of that. Because like I've had more like open time, right? Like I'll just be like, okay, well, what do I do now, right?
hmm
Then I'll search out more YouTube content, and then that fills up more and more and more. And now it's like, oh man! So now it's like to the point where there's like 15 videos a day at
Mm.
least, or around like 20 usually.
I'm
a lot
sure.
of
I'm
fun
sure
lately.
YouTube really loves you.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I watch a lot of YouTube, but I don't watch a lot. I don't watch any, like I don't have cable or YouTube TV or any kind of cable package. Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's not something I do. Like I think that's a outdated way to watch content. So YouTube is my TV.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, I would agree with that too.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm
I
sure
don't,
that's the case for a lot of people in our generation.
yeah. Because it's like there's not really much on TV. I mean, like, there's a lot. There is a lot, but it's like you pay
Uh,
a bunch for like stuff you could like. I don't. There seems to be that you can choose your own content for
yeah,
free on
yeah,
YouTube, as opposed to like this particular channel is part of this package. They have to buy the whole package. You can't just buy the channel by itself. And
no.
it's like some dumb thing. It's like whatever, dude.
Now I do still watch TV series, but I'm very picky about the TV series that I watch.
Same here. Um, I think the only two I've seen like actually on TV in the past while is the new DuckTales reboot.
Hmm.
I was watching the first season, and then Disney, also another Disney one was The Owl House, which was like a
Um,
new anime thing. And that's just like some girl like goes into a portal and now she's like in Witchland, woohoo, like a bunch of weird witches and goblins and whatever, right?
the last
Um,
time I watched TV, was about 3 years ago when my apartment complex had cable, and I would use
uh,
that to watch Game of Thrones
ooh,
back when it was
uh,
good.
yeah. I was gonna say, that's why I started to trail off. I was like, are we talking last season Game of Thrones?
It's such a shame because it was, yeah, it was really great up until that point, or it's pretty great up until that point.
See, a lot of people didn't like. There's a fair bit of people that didn't like season 7, but even I thought season 7 was like fine.
I mean, it didn't reach the tipping point, I would say.
Yeah, 'cause I think there was only like one part of season 7 where I was like, "This is stupid," and if it's, I think it was season 7, or like there were. Oh yeah, spoilers by the way. I guess if you care, it's been a few years, so if you haven't seen it yet, then
Game of Thrones season 7 spoilers.
yeah, fuck you if you haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna spoil, a Star Wars. He's Luke's father. Um, no, but where they were fighting like what was it? They were fighting the Nightwalker. They're trying to steal the Nightwalker, and it's like first of all, it's just a dumb plan. Like that was absolutely like written stupid. And they're fighting it, and like they're fighting forever, and then the dragon just happens to come at the last moment to save them.
Oh yeah, when they were on that island.
Yeah, and that just felt like super contrived and stupid. Like it was like, oh, they're in the ice, and the walkers are gonna get him, except just at the last moment. Like it felt like more like an action movie, and it's
That
like,
was yeah, that was definitely some really thick plot armor is what it was, I think.
yeah, oh yeah, and that too. Like when they were fighting the Night King as well.
Oh, at the siege on Winterfell. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was that kind of pissed me off. I usually don't. I didn't mind that Arya killed the Night King though. A lot of people didn't like that, but I thought it worked fine.
I really liked the episode. The only thing that stood out to me as negative is, you know, I felt like the Night King getting killed should have been the last thing, like part of the series finale, not 3 episodes into the season.
Yeah, I kind of felt like they lost all their steam after that point.
Yeah,
Uh,
like what now?
I feel like that scene could have been lit better too. Like I understand like it was like nighttime, that's kind of the appeal. Like you can't see, like it was cool with like how they used the fire and stuff, but
Yeah,
I still feel like could you do like a little bit more lighting, like just enough to where I could actually see what the hell's going on.
yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
That
So
was
there's
that was an
moments.
OLED exclusive.
um, yeah, and then so what do you think about him becoming the king?
Uh
And the broken.
oh yeah, Bran. Oh, I forgot who became king. Yeah.
It
Uh,
just felt out of
I
nowhere,
think
didn't it?
I don't. It should just be John, but I don't know. Like he has a lot of knowledge, but he doesn't have experience. But at the same time, it could be argued that that knowledge is the experience, just like how um, the collective knowledge that self-driving cars are accumulating by all the data that they're collecting in this phase, like all that results in a really experienced driver in the future. So from that regard, all this knowledge that he has, I guess, would be experience. But I feel like there's something to be said for personal experience that someone experiences themselves, like hardships
Yeah.
that would lead to good decisions overseeing a nation. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking that aspect, but I guess that is a show where it's encouraged to overthink it.
Yeah, for sure. When you're talking like crazy long books and stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I feel like it could have worked better if they would have actually built up to it. It just
Hmm.
kind of comes out of nowhere in the story.
At least have some
Like,
foreshadowing along the way.
yeah, like with the like probably one of the strongest moments I'd say of the series. At least I'd say one of the strongest. There's a lot of strong moments, so I definitely don't want to say the strongest. But the Hodor, the
Yeah.
hold the door thing,
Yep.
like that, that was gut wrenching, and that and that's not even a lot of foreshadowing for that either. Like that was just like connecting the dots of like, okay, well here's this and that. Okay, that's why we call him that. That's why he says that all the time. It doesn't take much.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, let's turn this into the Game of Thrones podcast.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like just delving into a bunch. I'm not saying like right now, but like that. Wouldn't mind delving into a bunch of TV shows and movies and all that.
If you could go back, since we were talking about like our college experience, if you could go back to, let's say, freshman year of high school,
Yeah.
would you have taken your life in a different direction?
Um. Okay, so that's kind of tough for me to say because
If
I
you had
have to.
if you had all the knowledge necessary for you to decide that you wanted to take your life in a different direction.
I think my life went pretty well.
Mm.
There's definitely a couple of things I would change along the way. I mean, who wouldn't, right?
Hmm.
But like some of those things also kind of give the experience of like, hey, like now if you don't get the experience, then you're not getting the what would you call it? Like the knowledge from it, I guess, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like like if you screw up and then you learn like, hey, not to do this again, type thing.
Yeah.
So like like there's things I would like mistakes I'd want to change. Those mistakes help to like not make those mistakes in the future, hopefully. But so like with the way I did college, right, or the way I did my I guess education in general. Freshman year was when I first started getting like putting the idea of like from other people of like, oh, you better start thinking about what you want to do after high school. I hadn't really put much thought to it,
Hmm.
and so like the first thing, like I was in what class? I was in like a computer class. I remember like trying to think about it, and then I made a joke of like, oh, I could be a psychologist, right? And I could tell it how it really is, whatever, right? Like just some vague idea of like, oh, not the whole count to 10 thing, not the like whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm Mr. Not even edgy, just in the sense of like I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. And so like I kind of stuck with that for like I started thinking about it more and more. I was like, actually that kind of seems like an interesting subject. So I was like, okay, well, whatever, right? I'll take it as a elective, right? So like I think junior year I took it as an elective or sophomore year or something, one of those two. And I liked it. And I was like, okay, well, keep this going, I guess. So then when college came around, I just did community college. It was local, it was right there, and plus I could do it online. So I was like, okay, screw it, I'll just go with that. So I did a couple more psychology classes there. Did all um the general stuff for the degree. Like all the required crap.
Yeah.
My brain's doing broken right now. Yeah, and so I was doing that, and there was one project in one of the courses, one of the psychology courses that was like kind of that was like, oh, examine like why you want to do psychology type thing, right?
Hmm.
If you do, and that was really helpful since because it really like made me think about like, hey, do I actually want to do this, or am I just like choosing this just because like I chose one thing, and it's a lot easier just to be like, okay, there, I chose it and done. You know, and so that made me like reevaluate it quite a bit. Then I got to university, right? And I started doing it as an actual like for the actual degree itself, as
Mm.
opposed to just an associates of arts, which is the first one I got, which is just general stuff. And then as I started doing more and more, like I tried to do a bunch of different classes that I'd be interested in. And that's where I kind of honed in on what kind of psychology I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I'm probably rambling a bit, but I mean, granted, this is the random ramblings.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, no, carry on.
um, but so basically, the long story short on that was I don't think I would change anything like major in the sense of because I do like how it went. I probably would take some of the stuff more serious, but other than that, like I'm probably good as is. But it is hard to tell because I'm not really at the point of the workforce yet.
Hmm.
Like I just finished college last May, and then obviously the pandemic kind of has made things a little iffy. And so I'm not really sure kind of what I'm doing in terms of like job stuff. I'm gonna be there's some stuff kind of nearby that I'm thinking of doing like the start of next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's kind of hard because I'm not like at the point that say you are, where you've been out of college for a while and have already moved on to the next phase of your life. I'm kind of like at the crossroads on this one.
yeah, yeah. Um, hmm.
Yeah.
Um, are you on a path to like become a therapist, or is that not really
Um,
the path that you're
so
headed towards?
mine's mainly research. Like I'm more interested
Oh,
in
okay, research, yeah.
like helping with that. Probably could do like okay, so where I'm at right now, I could probably do like counseling or something if I wanted to. As long as I got like the certificate, whatever, past that, and as long as I, like studied it a bit more, I could like go that way.
You have a master's or
No, I have a bachelor's.
okay, okay.
So bachelor's is more so like social work type stuff. Like it's nothing like it's not like its own like you can even call yourself actually a psychologist with that. I think you gotta have a PhD with that. At the very least, a master's for sure.
Yeah.
You need to be at PhD level. I think the only exception that's allowed is if you're a teacher. You can call yourself a psychologist. But I'm not 100% on that. Like to the point of like you could actually get fined if you're saying you are and you're actually not.
Yeah, I remember someone wrote in some advice to some governmental agency, and he was actually fined for claiming that he was an engineer because he was certified as an engineer in a different country and wasn't certified as an engineer in the States. And he received a fine just for saying as an engineer. I
Yeah,
think
see,
that's
stuff like that I feel like is a bit much. Like
yeah,
I guess you can make the argument like you would want people to be like as a doctor,
yeah.
and then they're like I don't know, but like what would okay so like you have doctor, then you have like medical professional. Like what would be or like like what's kind of the neutral term for like everyone in that type of field for like say an engineer or psychologist?
Oh, wait, wait. A generic term for that encompasses engineer and psychologist?
No. I mean like separately, as in
Oh,
like what's one for this one, and then what's a different one for this other one. Like because there's like, I mean, you would think healthcare worker probably
yeah,
encompasses all the medical kind of ones. You would think.
yeah.
Is there a term like that that would apply to say engineer, and is there also a term that would apply?
Uh, engineer, I think would be the
You think
term.
you would think
um,
engineer would be the term, right? Like I
yeah,
think most people use it like that. Same thing with
like
psychology. It's like
those of
this
us
filter.
in yeah, those of us in software engineering will kind of for shorthand we'll say engineer, and we specifically mean software engineer. But obviously we probably wouldn't say that in a non
Would
software
you
circle.
Would you think? Okay, so I guess if you're talking just computer stuff, would you say like technician perhaps? Would that be more of a?
I think technician is more specific than engineer, and I think an engineer. I'm not sure if an engineer would be a technician. I don't know.
Yeah,
Uh,
you could be like Disney and call yourself an Imagineer or whatever it is.
But yeah, I think engineer should be the generic term. I'll have to read up on that guy that got fined. See what the nuances of that were. I think he was a civil engineer specifically. So maybe in those circles like construction, that kind of engineering, you have to be very nuanced with how you say things.
Right.
I don't know if I like if I tweeted I am an engineer. I wonder if I could get in trouble for that. I suspect the answer is no. But
Well, because you have a master's, right? So I feel like that would kind of put you more along the lines of like you're fine.
yeah, but in my career, there's no certification. We don't have to keep a certification up to date. We just have our computer science degree, and that's good enough.
Okay, so then yeah, I would imagine you'd probably be fine then. Um, whereas something like psychology, like you'd have to actually have like a certification in the sense of like
Hmm.
because like there's the APA, American Psychological Association.
I'm gonna try it.
I'm gonna try
I'm an engineer.
breaking the law live on stream.
Heard I tweeted it. We'll see what happens. No. no, no, I'll be like, I was talking about Team Fortress 2.
Yeah, you could. I wonder if you could get away like plausible deniability, right?
Yeah. Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
see, I really find it to be a problem. Like if you're putting yourself out in terms of like getting services from someone, you're not
So-
actually like. Working.
someone already. I've got this. The whenever Lego tweeted out the Holy Shitter Cast thing on the Holy Twitter Cast account, there was someone that with the username Logo Designer, that followed me, and then I followed them and they followed me, and now they're liking all my tweets, and it's just so weird because they're an account specifically like trying to outsource themselves to do people's logos, and then I just have a bunch of tweets. Logo Designer liked your tweet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, though, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to network, and if it's mutually beneficial, the
Yeah,
dopamine hits. From
yeah. Networking is really important. And that actually leads me to what I would have done if I could go back to my freshman year in high school. So I've been watching a lot of Lex Friedman recently. He's a podcaster that's been on Joe Rogan, and he has his own podcast where his main focus is artificial intelligence. He's I don't know if he's a doctoral student or a postdoc
Right.
at MIT, and he does some lectures at MIT on artificial intelligence. And when I was in high school, I applied to MIT and interviewed with a guy and didn't get it, which maybe was a blessing in disguise because I don't think I would have. I think I would have had a lot of student loans that I'd be paying back even now, maybe. But if I could go back with my current I've like watching the podcast recently, I've been really salty because it sounds like his experience at MIT was really great as a software, as a computer science major, and I really wanted to end up there when I was in high school. So if I went back, I think I have the knowledge to properly position myself to apply and get accepted to MIT. Like I think what was missing was I didn't really have passion about anything. I had skills, but it was all directionless, and I think I was directionless until this year actually. Like this summer, everything just kind of started falling together. So now I have passion and I have direction.
Ever
and-
since the podcast came about, everything's
I mean, it was
coming up.
right around that timing. But that was just correlation. Although it was somewhat related because I think I had
Well,
some
it's probably a third-
experiences. Huh?
It's probably a third factor that attributed to both. Like the reason that you felt like passionate about now doing a podcast, whereas before, like none of us were really wanting to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
that probably played a role in pushing you to be like, yeah, sure, let's actually, get this set up and do it.
well, I guess
Probably was suggested more so than you did, but
I guess this is a safe venue to be a little bit more personal about myself. But all of this is kind of because of an acid trip.
Ooh.
So that like I'm not condoning that someone seek that out, but like that completely changed my life in so many different dimensions. Like that made me more open to the idea of the podcast, and so we started the podcast. That completely revolutionized my approach to how I do work at my day job. Completely revolutionized how I think about a YouTube career and personal finances and everything else. So
Right. Well, and you're also past that point. That was the first time you put yourself on camera, right? In terms of your YouTube account.
um
Did
uh,
you?
I had a few videos with face reveal before that. But I mean nothing too major. Um but I mean that's when I had the idea for the My Data Driven Life channel during that acid trip. And it took a while to get to the point where I'm actually making content, like 6 months, but I'm finally making content. And after recording this, I'm going to finish up my 4th video.
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna finish up an acid trip.
No, that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I got a little sidetracked there. I would love to do an episode talking about drugs at some point.
That'd be
Um,
interesting. I, you know, before we do that, we could do that next week. I should look
we
through some
could.
of my stuff. I took a few classes on it, but I've never actually like taken drugs. It'd be interesting to know
I mean, so
maybe the study.
psychedelics, yeah. So psychedelics is one of those things where I would not dare say, hey, you guys should go try psychedelics. They're amazing. They'll change your life. Even though I
Yeah.
believe that that's the case in a majority of the cases, there's a risk of what like some people would call a bad trip. I would call maybe a challenging experience. It's just it's like if you're not prepared mentally and emotionally, then it can be really traumatic. Um,
Something about the way that was worded made me think of, what was it? Um, where for a while there, they were calling loot boxes surprise mechanics. It just
yeah,
made me think of that. We don't
it's a
call them bad trips.
euphemism.
We call them challenging experience. Sounds like some PR talk.
um, but yeah, like there's obviously the risk of a bad trip, and it's also illegal, obviously, in most places. Um, and
We
then you really want to make sure you have a safe environment. So
right.
there's a lot of variables to not wanting to recommend that to anyone,
We here
even a
at
close
the
friend.
Holy Twittercast, we here at the Holy Twittercast would not recommend doing drugs illegally.
Yeah.
That said, tweeting themes at the Holy Twittercast would say that he advocates for every single drug to be legal because it's nobody else's business but your own.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that too. Um,
I'm even about that with the crazy stuff.
the thing is, at this point, I don't like. At one point, I would have recommended weed to people, like friends. But at this point, I don't even recommend weed to like to even a closest friend, because I've had a friend that went through a really traumatic experience the first time he tried edibles, and it like skyrocketed its anxiety, which it um like after seeing that happen, I'm very hesitant to even recommend that.
Right, well, it's one of those things, right? Even some of the safest stuff, like when it affects people differently, because people are inherently different,
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. Um, you get even like simple medical procedures can have the same thing. Like people that react negatively to anesthesia or anesthesia. I don't get Anastasia as a person.
Anastasia. I loved that movie.
Oh man. Ugh. I told you my brain's broken today. I don't know what it is. Probably because a little bit less sleep than I was supposed to get. But
Yeah.
whatever. I was staying up and I was trying to get trophies in a video game.
Oh yeah.
But like it's one of those where like
Relatable.
you have to get points of interest on a map. You have to go to these places, but you spawn in randomly, like on this map, and you only get one life. And it's like, ah, god, that's just a giant pain in the ass. But any of that stuff aside, people react differently to like different like medications and stuff. So like that wouldn't be a surprise that you get the one person. But of course, that would, you gotta be careful with some of that stuff for some people. I guess microdosing might be like a happy medium of that, where you could recommend that to probably anyone in the sense like they're not going to have like a they're taking it at such a low dose, they're not really having like a crazy bad trip.
Yeah, I plan to try that pretty soon for work. So yeah, probably gonna pilot that in January.
Nice.
But but yeah, I would not dare like recommend psychedelics like on the main podcast. I'm not recommending it here either, but I would not dare mention it on like my S channel or my S Twitter or anywhere
Yeah.
because like impressionable kids listening.
Right. Well, yeah, okay, that's the thing. Yeah, I guess that's the caveat of like if you're under the age of like I don't know, about like
50.
25, give or take.
No. Yeah, no.
If you're under the age of 75, you better not touch it.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, most people are just gonna say 18 or maybe even 21. I would go a little bit higher, but that's just me. Because I mean, that's more so the date on the brain, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like minds that are still or brains that are still developing are gonna have much more adverse effects. They're Mr. or Mrs. or whatever listener of this podcast. So
Yeah.
if you're a kid, don't do drugs.
Especially weed. Like you can have permanent cognitive decline if you use regularly, before a certain age, before your brain fully develops. From what a few studies have shown.
Right. That's probably why the stereotype of like the lay-bound
Stoner.
stoner,
Yeah.
like like that's probably why that exists, is because people will do it young. Same thing with like obviously people do young smoking and drinking as well.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, luckily, that's a pretty harmless stereotype.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say harmless, but like, like if you're gonna like become a heavy user of a drug, weed is probably the one that's least bad. Like, heavy use of alcohol and you're gonna do some liver damage. Heavy use of cigarettes. Okay, again, I'm not advocating for weed. Like
I am on my.
I had I had a serious problem with it up until August. I think it was August or September when I quit cold turkey because I was taking edibles daily, and that I definitely think I was addicted. I don't think I admitted it at the time, but looking back, I definitely was. So I think I have substance abuse problems, and I need to be careful. I need to be careful with that stuff, personally.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, because there's some people that just what is it? I guess I don't know if less control is the right way to put it with that, but in the sense of like maybe they let their guard down easier when it comes to that stuff or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But because a lot of it is like I said earlier, like with the whole time allotted thing, where it's like it's not the amount of time, but it's like how it's spent. I guess a similar type of thing with like it's not how much you do it. I mean, it is kind of to an extent, but it's more so like like do you feel like you need to do this? Like is that like if you're feeling like you need to, like it's definitely dripping into like might be addiction territory.
You sound like my therapist. You must have majored in the same thing he did. No. But no.
Sound like it how because I try to. Just like the words I'm saying, or more so like the cadence.
No. That exact phrase. that exact phrase is something my therapist has said when we've been discussing it. But no, I wasn't saying that in a negative way. Like it was just uncanny.
I didn't take it a negative way. I was just curious.
Yeah. It was just uncanny, like the phrasing.
I think about that stuff because, like, I mean, granted, I guess even probably lay people think about that stuff in the sense of like, we probably all remember when the gamer disease. Remember that for a bit?
Gamer gunk?
No, it was like the WHO made a thing that was called gamer disease, and it was like, or what was it? Gamer addiction. I don't know. It was something to do with like becoming addicted to video games, becoming a.
Yeah, you mean like in
thing.
general the whole gaming addiction? Like
Let me look up
movement.
exactly what it is. I know I'm like lazy on this podcast usually, but okay. Let me. Oh, gaming disorder. That's what it was.
Oh, gaming. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the point and like I feel like the name was a little off on it, but actually like it like the rest of it's fine. Like it's pretty much like, hey, if you experience like if you're over 12 months, are you like prioritizing gaming over everything else, and does it have a negative pretty much like the same thing with like any addiction. Like, hey, is this like messing with the rest of your life
Yeah.
for a prolonged period of time? Then hey, it might be a thing. Personally, I would have went with not really gaming disorder, but more so like what was it? There was like a because gaming disorder makes it sound like gaming itself is a disorder as opposed to instead of like maybe gaming addiction or something.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same thing. Like that actually resonates with me a lot. I think that describes my college experience with gaming. Um, and probably very similar reasons as to why I have substance abuse problems.
Yeah. Um, I had something. I lost it. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so the point being, like, in that it's that type of thing, like, because a lot of people like, obviously, you're a gamer, like I am, a fellow gamer.
Gamer.
Um, yeah, gaming. But I'm sure you've heard plenty of times like the idea of like, oh, he sits around, oh, he just plays video games all day,
Yeah.
right? Or something like from like a family member or something, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like a friend or something, like someone somewhere around. At the very least, you heard the most people that have listened to the podcast, for example, probably heard the stereotype of like the gamer that sits there in games.
Yep.
But so that's why I'm kind of more like along the lines of like more focused on that type of thing. Where like even before I got into psychology, like I kind of always knew it was kind of more of a it's not really the time; it's more so how you spend it.
Hmm.
Like I've like if I'm sitting there and like okay, I'm playing in college, and it's like okay, I graduated um with honors from two different colleges while I sat there and gamed, or like oh hey, I'm getting like A's and B's in most of my classes, and I'm still like sitting here gaming a bunch. So it's like no, I don't need to hear about like um like people being like, "Oh no, you're gaming too much," right? Especially because a lot of times what will happen is like those people will have like spend just as long on like I'm sure we've all heard the stereotype of like the person that just sits there and watches like sports games all day or like movies or just any TV, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Anime.
yeah. Actually, I've been getting more into anime because I had a free month subscription from Funimation, so I've been binging a bunch of them.
Sponsored by Funimation.
And, no, no, no. Although if you want to give me another free month, that'd be pretty dope.
Oh,
Uh,
like with the referral thing?
well, no, I just meant like in my email they sent me a
Oh.
thing that was like 3 month
Oh, yeah,
code thing, um, with a new account. So I made a new account,
yeah.
but where was that going? It was going somewhere. Time spent. Yeah. So yeah, that applies to a bunch of things. It is annoying, like because you spend more time in like a particular hobby or something, like it's not like you don't need some like asshole being like, oh yeah, you're addicted, like shut up.
Yeah.
Um, Although to you, it sounds like more so like, and I guess it helps too when you look back at some of them. At the time, it might not feel like addiction, but then later, like you're like, okay, it probably was on certain parts of it.
Mhm.
Sounds like you had that type of experience for your college on
Yeah.
the MMO thing. What MMO was it?
Guild Wars 2.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had like 8,000 hours after 2.5 years or something.
Ooh, nice.
Um, yeah, and I tend to do that a lot with a lot of things. Yeah, maybe. Well, I've been talking to my therapist about it. We haven't really talked about it in depth, but in general, like whenever I get into something, I overdo it. Like let's say what's a good example? Oh yeah, like I discovered that I enjoy investing um this summer, and then for a few solid months I would watch like 2 to 3 hours a day of YouTube videos about investing. So like once I
Yeah.
get interested in a topic, I obsess over it. You know, on the flip side, what ends up happening is I um I end up retaining a lot of knowledge about that topic, and I can recall that knowledge years down the line. So like at a certain point, I was really into powerlifting, and so I learned a lot about physiology and nutrition. And while I'm not like obsessing over the topic anymore, I still retain quite a bit of the knowledge that I gathered over that span of maybe a year and a half that I was really obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just a jack of all trades kind of person where I'm not I don't specialize in any given topic, but I obsess over a topic and then gain like like add that to my portfolio, I guess.
I obsess over a topic and then I gain subscriber.
Yes.
Um, I need to stop doing that. Like, I'll have an idea of like how I want to contribute to the conversation, and I think of a funny joke, or at least a joke that I think I say, like, oh wait, where was I actually going to go with this? Done
This
that
is a
like three
this is
times.
a serious podcast.
Yeah. Um, I mean, this is probably more serious than the podcast, but that's kind of sad actually. um, words. Where was I at? Oof. Okay, what was the last thing you just said?
How I obsess about a topic for a few months to a year
That's
and then move on to another topic and obsess.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. I remember what I was gonna say. Thank you for that. That was a good summary. Um, yeah, even with something like that, like a lot of it, perspective, right? In the sense of so like something like some people might look at that like, oh, that's you were like I don't know addicted to a topic, right? Maybe not that exact word, but like
Hmm.
obsessed. And you can sit there and be like, well, I got this positive out of it.
Hmm.
I think a lot of it depends on like the state and like the mental state that you're putting into it, you know,
Yeah.
as opposed to like the actual time spent. But well, same thing with kind of like I guess the whole addiction thing too, in the sense that it's the difference between like, do you feel like you need this, or are you just doing this because you're like, yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
Like
It
for
really depends. Yeah, it really
that's
depends on the
like
topic.
the same exact amount of time. Like there's a big difference. That's the difference between like addicted or not.
Yeah.
If somebody does like cocaine hit like once a month, but they really need that cocaine hit, it's going to be a lot more than the person that does it like recreationally here or there, maybe a couple times a month, maybe if they're not actually addicted to it, at least not to the like.
Yeah. I've
Um,
told I've told a few accountability partners, so I'm gonna just tell the podcast audience as well now. But I'm committing to only using weed 4 times a year. So once a quarter, I go all out, and that I've been sober since August, and so my first quarterly indulgence will be New Year's Eve. So I think this is going to be a good way for me to like use it recreationally because it is fun, um, but at the same time not fall back into my abusive, and by abusive I mean abusing the drug, abusive habits.
as long as you're hitting it at a certain mindset, right? As
Mhm.
long as you're not like counting down the days, being like, oh,
I
I
am
can't wait to
counting
have.
down the days.
I mean, I guess there's a different like there's a difference between like counting down the days of like, oh man, I can't wait to go to this party, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh, this is fun, whatever, right? Versus like, oh my god, like can this like day not come any sooner? Like, oh, like I don't know.
yeah. I think the question is whether or not I can function while counting down the days.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
I'm counting down the
Uh,
days because it'll be fun.
yeah, that's what I
But
mean. Like,
yeah,
I was hoping you were gonna get the spirit of what I was saying because
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
scaring me today, like more than they usually do.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of things to obsess over, this is going to be a hobby that's completely fruitless. There's going to be no like major benefit to me doing it, but I really want to. So I found an old Rubik's cube in storage, and
Ooh boy.
in high school I did the layer by layer method, and so my fastest time was around 60 seconds. But I think over the Christmas vacation, I'm gonna try to learn how to speed cube. So I'm gonna be learning a new method, um, and it's completely pointless because like what am I gonna do? Um, I'm not gonna go to a competition. I'm too old for that. like like it's
Well,
completely
uh,
pointless. It'll be fun though.
it could sharpen your mind a bit.
Yeah,
Like
I suppose.
those type of thing. I mean, obviously you're not old enough to. You're not at the level where like Alzheimer's is like a serious risk at the moment.
Yeah. Well,
But
no, I mean, like, there's no way I'm gonna be competitive at my age. Like
no, I get
five
that. I'm just
seconds,
like
4 seconds.
even something as simple as that, like keeping up your brain with like puzzles is always good. It helps stop mind deterioration. I guess is the
That's a
best
good
way to put
point.
it.
That's a good point.
But even I mean, and just the fact that like if you're doing something you enjoy, and that's always a helpful thing in a stressful world.
Hmm.
And not everything needs to be beneficial. Whatever, man. You have one life if you're enjoying yourself.
Have we talked about Neuralink? Um.
Yeah, I did. I think the first episode.
Oh yeah, we did. Um. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of the more exploratory things that Neuralink might solve. Like
Yeah.
let's say I think it's becoming increasingly obvious. Well, okay, maybe I'm in a bubble, but so I'm not sure if there's scientific consensus around this outside of my bubble. But from my perspective, it's becoming increasingly obvious that mindfulness is incredibly useful for uh, kind of making sure that you're able to focus and not get overwhelmed by thoughts and stuff like that. And so I wonder if that's an area for exploration for Neuralink in the future after they've solved the kind of the high priority use cases like Alzheimer's and paralysis and restoring sight and all of their kind of midterm goals. Um, I wonder if they can start exploring how to kind of optimize cognition and like just enhance the everyday experience of people. Like um,
I
increase the
wonder.
capacity for this kind of experience.
So, do you mean like better optimization, or do you mean like just more like almost like a storage increase to the brain? Is that kind of more what you mean? Or
Like in addition to the storage increase, which I think would probably be a realistic long term goal. Um, I think more of like quality of life improvements using gaming terms here, but
you,
like
my language, all right?
like like the way we think and behave every day has evolved with smartphones and the internet, and so a lot of the old wisdom probably won't continue to hold up as far as you know how to have how to feel fulfilled and how to I don't know if I'm explaining this the right way, but I don't know if you get what
Um,
I'm saying. Like
well, okay, so, and I kind yeah, I mean that makes sense if I'm getting what you're saying in the sense of like the world's so rapidly evolving that like any sort of like this is how you do things, this is how you go through life. It's not really too. I mean, there's still some validity to it, but like it doesn't really apply to everyone anymore.
yeah
Like you can't just like get one job and like get a wife and get 2.5 kids or whatever the hell it was and a dog and live in the suburb. Like
yeah
that 1950s life.
the atomic family.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think uh, there are definitely a lot of concerns that need to be addressed when it comes to social media and how it impacts the way we think and behave. But I think once we've figured out how to address those concerns, there's probably a lot of benefits that have yet to be discovered, like our quality of life mentally and emotionally could potentially improve drastically, just from all this technology that we have at our fingertips.
Right, right.
So I'd love to see a future where everyone's super conscious of mental health, as a whole, um, and it's just as natural to take care of your mental health as it is to brush your teeth or go on a walk for exercise.
Dude, I would love that, man. Like anytime someone, since you said obviously it's mental health, right? So psychology,
Mhm.
but um, anytime anyone ever mentions like therapy, I'm usually one to like throw in the fact that like probably every single person could use it, like ever.
Yep, I agree there.
Since maybe not like ever, like maybe not every single individual, but probably most, if not all of them, could benefit from it in some way. Assuming that you get paired up with like the right therapist.
I'm
Some therapists
actually
probably don't gel too well with the patients and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm actually curious about that. Therapy is pretty expensive, I would say. Um,
Yeah.
do you think there's a scalable solution to where everyone on the planet could have access to therapy on a regular basis?
Maybe if we started putting money into our fucking health services.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe if we didn't spend another
Military.
20 million trillion fucking dollars in the bloated military budget from a you know
The Pentagon spends $2 billion every single day.
yeah, so like with those like I'm pretty jaded when it comes to that stuff. Like
Yeah.
honestly, like I wouldn't mind like a single year where like not just cut by half, like oh I almost cut the whole thing, like cutting like 90% like 1 year just to make some of our money back. So that's why I never buy a lot of like arguments about like oh some X is expensive. It's like fuck you, it is. In a sense, because it's like we just spent like for like I can't even imagine how much $1 trillion is, but we just spent it on like some missile that we're never going to use. It's just sitting in a storage shed for.
That extra trillion could have gone towards stimulus.
All right.
I wonder if the problem is that the country just can't scale well anymore. Or, well, I imagine it's always been kind of a problem. I wonder if that is a signal that we need kind of smaller local governments.
Um, Potentially. I mean, yeah, local would help, and because, like, for example, like when the police, for example, come from like their own community, right, and they know the people in there, like they're gonna like that, and that's just police, for example. But then like health services would as well. Like when there's more personal touch to things, like there's usually things get along more.
And
Like
I feel
the local mom and pop shop versus the old whatever.
and I feel like authoritarianism scales very well, like China and Russia. Um, and then maybe democracy kind of struggles at this scale. So I don't know if that's an apt observation
Right.
of the current state of things. I think it'll be interesting to see how India evolves over time because they're, a democracy
Yeah.
that has a population comparable to China. So it'll be interesting to see how they scale things.
Um. Yeah. I'd be interested to see where that goes because they've industrialized quite quickly compared to the other countries.
Yeah.
I think with our problems more just money and politics than anything else. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even think like necessarily democracy is the problem there. I think it's just more so that we don't we let people spend money to can't like lobby against our own interests.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Nobody does anything to stop it. 'Cause it's whatever, and then you start getting into whole like doomer mentality of like what's even the point. But whatever.
Do you think the U.S. could scale military spending by orders of magnitude down for like additional savings that could be put towards others public services and like still retain kind of do you think the amount of military power that we have is necessary?
Oh, not at all. Not even close. We spend more than what the next like 10 nations combined.
Yeah.
We could probably cut that fucker in half, and like it wouldn't even they wouldn't even feel it.
Um. Do you think do you think we should be concerned about China in the next few decades as far as them, kind of taking over? Like,
I think it's worth keeping an eye on it. They're pretty aggressive in terms of marketplace.
yeah,
But at the same time, like I think you could still prepare for something like that without spending nearly as much money as we are.
yeah.
It's
I think
like
I'm not patriotic to the point where like I'm upset if some other government becomes the dominating power, like economically speaking or something like that. I think that's great, for any country to succeed in that in that way. But I think an authoritarian government, continuously increasing its military power and its you know potential to become the authoritarian government where you live as well. I think that's something that worries me.
yeah, China's one specifically that I'm not really too thrilled on having any sort of power. Like when you get to the point of like, and I mean, a lot of countries do this to an extent. So I'm not like it's not like oh god, the U.S. is super great with that, But if you can't even like, oh no, you can't compare the president to a Disney character, otherwise you're get jailed or something. It's like what? Maybe don't give them all the power. That'd be fantastic.
So I wonder how much there is that we still don't know about as far as the U.S. government's surveillance of its citizens. Like China is very out in the open about how it does its surveillance, um,
Yeah.
but I think we're a lot more subtle about it. Obviously, Edward Snowden exposed a lot of it years ago.
For sure. I think even what was it? Like even Facebook was able to like look into your messages. I feel like I mentioned this in one of the other episodes.
Yeah,
Like they were able to look into your private messages to other people. Like
yeah,
they were just like open for anyone to like hack into, and it's just like a lot of the problem is like we openly like let people have you know our information. Like yeah, sure, let's sign up here. Let's put our let's put our phone number on this account. Let's put that whatever. And then
what
let's put in smart devices into our lives where they record our voices. It was like a Microsoft one where like they were able to hear um your stuff. Like they weren't listening in, they said, but they were still able to
uh,
hear like
uh, what, like on smart devices or
I think
phones?
through the connector something, if I'm not mistaken.
Connector. Interesting.
Connect, like the Xbox
Oh,
Connect.
Connect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Of course, when it comes
It's
to
been a
smart devices like that, like there's obviously a use case there, um, because to make those smart devices better over time, they need samples of audio. Uh, of course, probably the best way to do that is have a volunteer program where you opt in, um,
right.
to provide your voice samples, which companies are moving towards, it seems.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? Because it's like a lot of people would be like you'll take something for example like because I have a PlayStation, so recently they added in a thing where like they can record the party chats.
Mhm.
Its use is that like if you report someone from these group chat things, they said something right, they can go back and listen to the audio, see if you actually like were saying whatever the report says you were saying. Um, but obviously, like to even have that capability would necessitate recording that, or monitoring it or whatever. Right?
Yeah. Um, hmm. Yeah, I wonder if this is something we should be worried about on a company by company basis. Like, let's say, you know, company
I
X and Y.
think some are probably worse than others, but I mean, you probably shouldn't be worried about all of them in a
Yeah,
sense. A
I
lot of them
I
are
I
going
tend
to
to
use
trust
advertising.
I tend to trust Apple fairly highly. Of course, that is part of their marketing, that they're very privacy centric. So I don't know. Maybe
I would
maybe they're
I
lying
would
because, like, if you
never
look at
on my Mac, bro.
hmm?
No, I was just making a joke.
Oh
I would
yeah.
never trust Apple on my MacBook, bro.
um, because I mean, if you look at the data security policy within the Apple organization, everything is very siloed. So you don't like an employee within Apple doesn't have visibility into the entire company. They have visibility into their product area specifically.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that there are, product areas within Apple that are dedicated to, subterfuge and surveillance, and it's built in at a very, subtle level into the hardware or the software. So it's very possible. I think if any company doesn't do that, it's Apple, but I could be wrong there.
I feel like it's not necessary to the point like where we kind of just give, like I said earlier, we kind of just give away most of our stuff anyway.
No, I mean,
So I mean,
what I specifically mean, like, what I specifically mean is uh, cooperation with the government.
oh yeah. Okay, so I remember that one. I think it was Apple. One case where like they took Apple to court to like well, you need to give the government like a backdoor into your
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
we're not doing it. But I don't know if that's really. I,
It's possible
I
that
would.
was just for show. Like that's my conspiracy theory, but it's not a conspiracy theory that I actively believe. But it's possible.
I think. Yeah, I think it's possible. But I'm more so thinking like that's more so because they. I don't know. They can add lever. Like because if the government has to go to Apple for stuff, you can kind of like squeeze more out of that deal.
Yeah, like
I think it's more so a leverage thing than it is any sort of like, oh yeah, we're super pro consumer. But maybe that's just me being cynical.
like honestly, the only entity that I don't trust at all is the U.S. government. Um,
Uh,
as far as like a tech company having access to a bunch of information about me, personally, I don't really have a problem with that in in itself, because you know, like a human might end up looking at my data at some point to debug something or something, but typically that's very highly access controlled. So, and it depends on the company. Like Facebook is probably a lot more lax with that from things that have been leaked. Um,
yeah.
so like it's usually a machine learning algorithm that sees my data, quote unquote sees my data. So
Right.
generally I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with government backdoors that might possibly exist. I don't like the thought of that.
I think that's fair, especially because mostly in terms of companies, most of them are just using them for advertising purposes.
Yeah, which I'm okay with. Greed is fine as long as it's not the government spending billions or trillions,
Yeah.
paying for access to that. Um,
Uh,
hmm.
I don't really trust any governments, at least to like. I mean, obviously, I trust them to an extent. Like, I'm not fucking their conspiracy theory. Like, they're all.
Yeah,
I guess I'm wary. I guess wary is probably the best way to put it.
yeah, yeah.
And I think the bigger people are probably more wary of, just because like they have more power to like actually mess with things. Like I'm not like sitting there thinking, I don't know, Zimbabwe is really out there on a bunch of crazy stuff. Like, what the hell is Zimbabwe gonna do?
Yeah, like I trust local and state government to provide services like roads and fire departments and all that, and like I trust them for that, and I trust the federal government to mostly have my interests in mind when they're doing legislation, and I think the judicial system is mostly working, but there's obviously problems there too. Like I think as a whole, the government is something that I believe in, um, but at the same time, like you said, I'm wary that if there's an opportunity for governments to have insight into very specific activities on an uh, I've been de-anonymized basis, like they specifically know that these data points are me, and they could use that information against me in the future. Like that's the thing that I'm wary about.
Yeah.
Um,
I would agree.
Anonymized location data is kind of an oxymoron to me, because if you have access to unaggregated location data at scale, then you can aggregate all that location data in a way where it uniquely identifies you. I think I went into that in my MDDL video. Like,
It's like same thing. Like if I have enough points of your fingerprint, then I could figure out who you are, even if
yeah,
it's not like your name right next to it.
yeah. So there's like a certain point where it's really important that you set boundaries for yourself to where, like, let's say I don't collect too much information about a user in one point to where that could cause me to accidentally or intentionally identify the person. Like I think those kinds of standards should be set at a government level. But at the same time, they have incentives to use it for law enforcement, so that's never going to happen.
Yeah. I draw the line at showing my asshole to people. Don't collect that data.
I wonder if like 20 years down the line, now that everyone that's growing up with the internet has put so much information out there on the internet, that if certain parts of the government have incentive for someone not to become eligible for a political office, that they could just go to the CIA and say, hey, can you dig up dirt on this person and make it look like it was leaked by someone that's not the government? And then suddenly that person's canceled and they have no possible way of getting elected.
I think it's possible. The problem I have, they could probably do it much simpler in the sense of like, you can look at our own election here, like any sort of, like say I mean, and Democrats and Republicans both suck. So before anyone like gets at me about that, like they
Yep,
both off.
they all suck.
But you'll take for example like like say Bernie and Biden and the rest of them, right? And it's like every single one of them gets called like a socialist or a commie or whatever, right? So like, does it really like even though they're like pretty different from each other?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't think they have to go through that much effort to like drag somebody down.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
just targeted ads kind of gets can get it done. All you gotta do is paint someone as like some other thing, and then you're good.
Yeah, I wonder if I wonder what retention policies at NSA look like profiles they have on individuals. Like I wonder if they have the capability to store like all your browser history, all your online interactions, and then keep adding storage as time progresses and they collect progressively more data. Like I wonder if they have a permanent retention of data about you, or if they have a retention policy where after 7 years, for storage cost reasons, they get rid of the old
I
data.
wonder how much I would. That's one thing I'd want to know more than anything. That is how much it costs to like store all the information they're storing.
Now there's an idea for a Vsauce video.
That would be because that has to be that has to be probably the most. That has to be the largest amount of storage from anything, right?
I might turn that into an MDDL video. Do some research, crunch some numbers.
I mean, because what other country? Like, I mean, yeah, besides China, maybe, but even then, like, I think probably our internet's more developed than theirs has been, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Like their infrastructure, their tech infrastructure is really amazing. Like I'm super interested in that aspect of it, just out of the convenience that they provide to Chinese citizens. Like they have QR codes on poster boards right now, where you scan it and you can report your health status with regards to COVID-19, and it's just all super seamless. And they have facial recognition that's hooked into like payment information, so you can like check into your hotel just with facial recognition. Like technology wise, that it sounds really cool. Obviously it's a slippery slope when it comes to surveillance, but
yeah, but what's the problem, right? You run into the what I was saying earlier, where we kind of just give our stuff away freely, like because some of that stuff sounds cool, right? It's like, oh hey, let's get a security system, right, where we have cameras and they monitor our back doors and stuff, right? It
I
has sound and audio, or well, sound and audio, same thing, dipshit. video and audio.
You're familiar with the Tor network, right?
I know of it. I've
So,
never actually like looked into trying it.
so for those that are
But
listening, the Tor network is basically the dark web or the deep web that people are talking about. But it's kind of complicated to set up, especially if you're hosting a node that other people would host content on. But the idea is that it's a decentralized network where you have a bunch of nodes that are hosting the internet, or well, the dark web. I think the long-term solution to combat government surveillance is for us to come up with something like that, but modernized and much more user-friendly, where someone could like uh, get a Raspberry Pi and host their own node, or something even simpler than that. Like someone come up with an out of a box, like a tech company comes up with some device that you can put in your house. Of course, then there's trust issues, but like the idea is that the more consensus you have, the more participation you have in this decentralized network, the stronger it gets, and the more it's able to support as far as use cases. So if we could have a decentralized internet where we have all the infrastructure in place to where if the United States suddenly decides we're going to take away the internet, or China decides, which they've already done to a certain extent, like any country decides they're going to take away the internet, you still have this decentralized internet that you have access to. I think the physical layer of the network would be the big challenge to solve. Like, how would you, like, you'd probably want a wireless mesh network where you have devices in your home that communicate with devices in other homes nearby, and you form this decentralized network that way.
yeah, it'd be nice if it was simpler, because like that's been like the main thing of why I never bothered to even try it.
Yeah.
It's like it seems like a giant little pain in the ass to set up.
Yeah. But I, I think, yeah, like cryptocurrency, blockchain. Blockchain is basically um, a very similar concept. It's a decentralized network where you have nodes that do all the work. And Ethereum specifically is uh, a network where you can program interactions among participants in the network, and you pay for it with the Ethereum, currency Ether. And I think something like that could potentially be the basis for a better version of a decentralized internet. So maybe that's the replacement for the Tor network, some sort of blockchain based uh, network layer. I don't know. I think there's a lot of people already working on that kind of stuff. So I'd be interested in following that kind of development.
And it'll be interesting to see, because I mean that stuff's just gonna become more and more popular as time goes on.
Yeah, and the more people you have participating, the easier it gets.
Yeah,
Because then you have more people making apps to simplify the process, or making devices to simplify it.
I buy 3 Mighty Kids meals and get a free Tor network. Oh boy. Um, almost been going for like 2 hours.
Yeah, we can cut this one if we wanted to right now.
Okay, one thing I did want to mention, because I forgot to mention it earlier about the gaming addiction thing, is I was going to mention a game that I'm pretty sure addicted to at a point. I guess a couple different games. Did you ever play like any of those Facebook or MySpace games at all?
I played a little bit of Farmville, and
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, there was one game, the same company that makes Farmville, by the way. There's one game I was addicted to called Mafia Wars,
Oh, yep.
and yeah, so the whole family was like doing all right with that for a bit. Like at the point where like we made like extra accounts, like we each had like 3 accounts to do it. um, and then I don't know, like what got me out of that is one, because we were doing it on MySpace, and then so MySpace stopped updating their game.
Hmm.
And then eventually, when I went to Facebook a couple years, like I think like a year later or so, right? Like they were like way the hell ahead. So obviously they kept updating there. They just gave up on MySpace support. But it's like there's that, and also just because I was kind of getting out of like using social media. Like looking back on it, like there would be times where like like checking like setting it to certain like I feel like when you get to the point where like I'm setting this to go to a certain time, so like when I wake up I'll be ready to like go at it again type thing.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing that like a bunch, I feel like that's kind of where it gets a little iffy.
There was someone I was sort of dating a few years ago, and she and her mother were addicted to this. It was a clone of a really popular mobile game that I'm forgetting the name of. Um,
And
uh,
Candy
but
Crush.
anyway, no, it's like an MMO kind of game. Uh, it was called Final Fantasy 15, some subtitle to it, but it was basically a clone of a really popular game that's very predatory. So they would be buying $100 packs like on a
Oh,
monthly
is that
basis.
the World of Final Fantasy thing?
Huh?
That World of Final Fantasy or
Yeah,
whatever it
something
is.
like that. But like you basically have like a base and you have a character and you go explore the map and there's other people that you play with that are on the map and it's so pay to win. Like the most powerful people on the server are the people that spend the most money, and like there's people that spent tens of thousands of dollars on that game, and it's
Yeah,
so incredibly predatory. I like that. That was a horrible thing to watch.
those type of games are very those type of games to easily get addicted to. Like my dad's addicted to a game like that, or
Hmm.
I don't know if he. I think he still is. He was for, like definitely for a bit. The Star Wars like mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I counted up like the money he was spending on it, and it's like, ooh, that's a little. Like,
Yeah, I spent a lot on Guild Wars 2 on cosmetics, but
yeah.
yeah. Um
Luckily, any game I've ever been addicted to, I've always been stingy. So,
yeah.
which is probably why I end up falling out of the game eventually,
Yeah.
because I just get frustrated of like not like it being anywhere. I'm just like I'm not gonna spend this money, like knowing like how high of a ceiling
So
down
I
we're in.
so I
Yeah.
discovered RuneScape or I discovered that I really enjoyed RuneScape in January of last year or this year, I
Nice.
mean, January 2020, and I played until like June and I was really getting into it. I got my first 99. I was very close to my second 99. Like, oh, I love that game so much, and I still would love that game, but I had to unsub and uninstall because I could see myself getting back into that same pattern that I did with Guild Wars 2. I
Yeah.
would absolutely love to get all, all the 99s and, like do all the in-game content. I would really love to do that, but I would just be wasting so much of my time that I could be using on other stuff.
Yeah. I remember playing RuneScape as like a kid, like at the YMCA.
I hope the server's running or I can host my own server whenever I retire, and then I can then I can just play MMOs all day. Like that's gonna be my retirement.
That sounds like fun. You're enjoying yourself, I guess. I mean, to an extent. But,
Honestly, I'll probably get to that age and I'll still want to keep doing productive stuff. So never mind. We'll see.
well, yeah. I'm gonna sit around game for 18 hours today.
I'll just upload my brain and then
It will be your character. Will
put
be
myself on
Mr.
a spaceship and point myself at the nearest galaxy and then spend the next 10,000 years playing video games.
Yeah, right. As long as they're good games, man.
Yeah.
But because there was like another game too. I remember
Hey, I could, I
that.
could, I could probably, I could probably even host and play multiplayer games against really advanced AI.
Ooh. Hopefully not the same AI that does chess on Apple. Have you ever played chess on like an Apple device?
um,
Like, on a computer?
on Apple, you said? Oh, you mean like the chess game?
Like a Mac. Yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't actually tried it. Uh,
Oh dude, it's so difficult. It's so fucking hard. Like
when you were saying
the di-
Apple, I thought you were gonna say AlphaGo or Alpha.
no, just on like my MacBook. Like the difficulty level of the chess like bot is like nuts.
Hmm.
Like I've sat there like hours upon hours, like resetting moves, like because you can just go back right and just reset a move and try like all these different combinations, like hundreds and hundreds of different like combinations at different points, and it's just like still getting my ass kicked. It's like,
Yeah,
man.
I think AI has far surpassed humans on chess at this point, and also Go. Like, I think it's getting to the point where, um, you know, humans are dwarfed by AI when it comes to Go.
It comes to Go.
Go, it's another board game. Um, it's a Chinese board game, and the branching factor of when it comes to designing these AI, you have a bunch of possible paths that you can go down to make a decision, and the branching factor I think of chess is around 100. So that means for every move you have to traverse 100 different paths recursively. I'm doing a horrible summary of how it works, but the
Right.
branching factor of, and I could have gotten the branching factor wrong, but the branching factor of Go is like a magnitude higher than it is for chess. So as far as designing an AI that can beat a human at Go, it's like a magnitude more difficult than beating a human at chess, and they're already like doing that against world champions.
Yeah. Dude, imagine being beat by a computer. I mean, I don't know. To me, like,
Hey, it happens all the time. And
like,
like,
there was that one dude in chess. Like, what he was winning against the chess bot for a little bit, and then he like lost once.
yep.
Like he lost another time, or like before he let. What is it? Like he gave up or something, or he flipped the board or something.
And I know Google has a team that's working on building a bot that beats people at StarCraft.
Hmm. Nice.
And then there was IBM Watson that played Jeopardy.
Oh yeah, the show. Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder. Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just trivia shows. I guess filled with much trivia. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how. At the very least, we got more artistic stuff that we can still keep to ourselves, even when the robot overlords take us over.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
Now,
I have my doubts about that after seeing GPT-3.
oh,
But yeah, we'll see.
I think at the very least it'll take a long time for them to get to. They got all the like all the number based stuff,
Yeah.
sure, but I don't know. Like visually, I still feel like they're still behind by a fair bit. But I mean, once they crack that barrier, I guess then.
I think they're going to reach a tipping point, and then things are going to progress exponentially really fast. Uh, just like how Game of Thrones reached a tipping point, and then things started going downhill really fast.
Yeah,
That tipping point was when the Night King was killed. Spoilers.
you're right. Uh, yeah. Yeah, because some people were like I get the point of like, okay, so John is like this chosen one, he should have done it, and I think that's fine. I think that would have worked as well. I do like Arya doing it though, considering her whole arc of like becoming this like big old assassin, fucking killing a bunch of people.
Yeah, that was a good conclusion to her arc, personally. I think.
I feel like it worked, but there was definitely some people that were like really pissed on that. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Um,
Well, I think we should
guess
end it. Um,
yeah. It's gone.
before we get on another 45-minute rabbit hole.
I wonder, do you think this is an episode that we'd even be able to split up in two, or do you think it'd be just worth it?
I think the two
Yeah.
hours is fine. Like, Joe
Right.
Rogan does it, right?
Yeah, well, if anything, it could be a test, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really want us to get some guests on here and like
for sure.
ask them a bunch of questions about a subject.
Actually,
I talked to my friend. I don't think they're interested. I think they're a little shy about being on stuff. So
all right. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I guess you could always offer that we could be like, hey, we could, you don't have to say your name or anything. We could just,
yeah. Do you think Dallas has a music theory background? We could
uh,
we
see,
could do.
yeah. To be honest, I don't know. I've never asked him anything about his, like I know he has a band.
He could be a random ramblings guest.
Yeah, we could spend it on like a music thing. Well, I guess it depends if whether or not him and Weird Al are going to be doing anything.
Hmm. Well, just as a one-off, at least, right?
Yeah, yeah, we could always.
All right. Well,
Uh,
you've been listening to Random Ramblings. This is episode number 4.
Yeah, episode number 4. It feels like it's been forever.
If you regularly listen to our episodes this much, we're probably canceled. But
Actually, this is probably fair then, because we didn't do one last week. So this next one's twice the length.
Oh yeah.
We're making up for lost time.
Yep.
But yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. You can catch more of these videos and and the other podcasts we do. The other side show that Sonic and Lego do. That's a pretty neat one too.
And if you know of any moderately small like people that might want to be a guest, let us know who they might be, or if it's you, reach out to us.
Yeah, we're always down to have guests for interesting conversation. And if you watch this, you know we just ramble on about stuff we care about the entire time. So don't feel like you can't do that yourself.
Yep, we could talk about gaming.
Yeah. Gamer moment.
Gamer moment. All right, well, I'm gonna end the recording.
Same here. When you cut the video, end it at a gamer moment, like when we both say it.
Gamer moment. Gamer.
We can. Do you want to call the podcast episode that gamer moment?
Gamer moment. Sure. Gamer moment.